to another chapter of Dissidia Shadowgate. Last time, Firion and his team started to investigate the dreaded castle upon Cosmos' last wishes, and they've actually heard the Dark Warlord of raising the behemoth, and Shantoto challenged him. Like, you can talk the talk, but you can't walk the walk. And so they started to investigate the place. They fell into a trap, but thanks to Precious float, they managed to stay alive. And they also encountered a wraith, to which Shantoto fried with ease, along with Yuna, upon Titus's cockiness. But I should warn you guys, it's gonna be this easy because it's Dissidia. If it's just Shadowgate, it won't be so simple. So, I'm telling you all this, do not use it as a guide, because it's completely different. So, let's get this thing started. Alright, Chapter 2. In the stone chamber there were two barred portals on the left side, and above them was an engraved sign that read, Epor. Next to that was a pillar with few valuable objects, and there was a hole in the ceiling big enough for a person to fit in. Luneth observed the objects, which turned out to be an ancient parchment, a small silver bottle with a foul-smelling odor, and a silver vial that shined with a lustrous glow. Terra looked at the sign and wondered what it could mean. He answered, "Well, we'll just have to find out." He took a deep breath and said, "Epor!" And suddenly a rope dangled to the floor from the opening in the ceiling. "Heh, just as planned." "Good work, Luneth. Let's see what's up there." Everyone climbed up and saw 3 mirrors, a broom, and a descending staircase. Zidane and Bartz decided to stay behind without the others knowing. "Hey, Bartz, let's have some fun, shall we?" Just to pass the time, they started playing games using the mirrors. The warriors came to a long, cold hallway lined with coffins. Luneth began to stutter. "Ooh, I don't like the looks of these." Dang scrolls. Bart spoke with glee. "Don't worry, buddy. Each coffin can hold many surprises. Maybe it could be treasure we need to defeat the warlock. Let's try and find out. Here's coffin number 1. The golden coffin on the right wall opened, revealing a silk sack. Bartz opened it, and he gathered 3 copper coins. "See? No worries. You won't know unless you try. Let's see what's in coffin number 2. He opened the lid of a silver coffin, and out came a mummy. "Yikes!" Bartz fell on his butt, and Titus, Shantoto, and Luneth stood in front of him. Titus swung his sword at it, and it countered as its bandages wrapped tightly around his body. He tried to speak, but he could only mumble. "Looks like it's up to us. Breath of ice!" He used Blizzaga as 3 enormous ice balls shot out at it. Then Shantoto did the same, and it dissipated along with the wrappings around Titus. Relieved to speak, he said to himself, "You just can't talk in these things." "Be grateful that you can." He grabbed a scepter and looked at the young knight, shivering with fear. He had shaky hands, opening a coffin in the left wall. Then suddenly a banshee sprang out with an ear-piercing screech, frightening the child. He dropped his sword in horror and pleaded it to go away. Soon enough it did as he opened his eyes. "Oh, my, you are the Freddy cat, aren't you? Hey, it's not funny. I can still open the next coffin, you know." Talked back. He did, and slime sputtered out. Some landed on him. It was acidic slime, burning his skin. "Ah!" In the nick of time, Terra rushed toward him and immediately casted Poisona, then Cure to heal his wounds. "Oh, thanks, Terra." She nodded in appreciation and grinned. The gang headed south to a room with carved walls as if they were made by enslaved mountain dwarves. As they approached, one room was each located on the side walls and another was a tunnel in the back wall. They headed straight and wound up in the same place where the floor collapsed. I think we might have missed something before we came here. Allow me, Firion said as he pulled out his grappling hook and extended it to the other side. Luneth climbed the rope over the abyss and wound up in the first room of the castle. He grabbed a key out from his pocket and unlocked the small right door which stored his sword and his sling. He made it back and followed the leader. Firion went to the left door and walked into a cold room with the stench of decaying flesh. There was a wooden door to the left and a trap door made of polished metal to the right. Everyone noticed Terra's constant shivering, but it wasn't just the cold air she was feeling. She sensed that an evil presence is close by. I don't see anything unusual. Come on, let's check this out. With a shrill voice, Terra begged him to stop, but he kept going in. She gave in as she tried to hold back the tears filling her eyes. Firion laid a hand on her right shoulder and assured her that he'll be fine. They both proceeded, and as they walked in, the door slammed shut with a thunderous bang. The others tried to open the door, but it was no use. The trio were trapped. Luneth desperately tried to lift the door, but it wouldn't budge. He started to yell his friends' names. However, there was no answer. Firion and Terra looked ahead, and they were shocked to see two red eyes peering from a dark tunnel. They also saw two crystal shards, a skeleton, and a coffin. What could that be? Firion took out his Ragnarok and declared the beast to show itself. Provoked, the dragon let out its fire breath and Firion immediately took out his ice shield. He raised it just in time to block it. Terra and Luneth uncovered their eyes and they stared in shock at the small puddle. Firion heard the dripping and looked down. He looked back up and the source was his shield. It started to melt under the intensity of the dragon's breath. Both Luneth and Terra each shot Blizzaga at the dragon, but it had no effect against the flames. Firion raised his shield again and it began to melt in chunks. The shield was falling apart. Soon he was holding nothing and he signaled the girl and the young knight to march forward. Our blizzard spells are useless! And how can we defend ourselves without a shield? Firion took the initiative. Listen to me. Our spells are worthless because we've been using them one at a time. Remember what I said about fighting as one? If we could use them together, we might stand a chance. Wait for my signal. They nodded and the dragon roared as he prepared to unleash its fury. Wait for it. Wait for it. Fire spewed toward the group. Now! Firion and the Onion Knight held back with their Blizzagas, but Terra was too frightened to use hers. By each passing second, the flames pushed toward them, and their powers were growing weaker. Firion looked back at Terra, her face as white as a sheet, and yelled, Listen! You have to use your powers to push back the flames! I can't. Luneth used all his strength to keep them from burning to death. Firion had enough energy to speak one last time. You can do it! You have to! She squeezed her eyes shut and took a couple deep breaths. She opened them with full determination. If I have to fight... She stepped closer to her companions, relaxed, and concentrated until her palms brightened blue. She formed it into a huge ball of ice and shot out toward the menacing flames. With the combined force, it was still not enough. She tried all her might to push back, then she closed her eyes. When she opened them, they began to glow yellow and her body turned while her outfit disappeared, and she started to reveal her whole body. Her hair and skin were an eerie white color. She realized she was turning into an Esper. And this is her EX burst, by the way. She breathes heavily as she gains more strength. No more running. I can protect everything! Suddenly, the Grim Reaper flashed before her eyes and she summoned all her courage. I won't be defeated! At that moment, she pushed the devastating ball of ice back, slicing through the merciless fire. It kept going back toward the dragon in the tunnel, pushing it to the back wall. The beast couldn't stand it, and eventually the whole tunnel lit up. In a matter of seconds, There was a deafening explosion, rumbling the walls and shaking the ground. Particles of dust fell from the ceiling, but everything was still intact. Terra dropped her arms and collapsed in a heap while Firion and Luneth unshielded their eyes. They were stunned by the impact of the ice blast. Everything fell silent, and Luneth whispered, We've done it! We've won! Yes, when we all work together, we can overcome any adversary, no matter how strong they are. He looked down and grabbed Terra's hand. You okay? Yeah, she said as she stood up. She looked around in utter shock. Did we defeat it? Yes, because we all work together. If we keep doing it, we'll soon defeat the Warlock, and then we'll be able to go home. We wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for you. She shone the biggest grin on her face and thanked everyone for their encouragement. Firion! A voice called from behind. It was Firion! A voice called behind. It was Cecil, checking on the trio as he ran to them. Cloud followed too. You look all right. Of course. It was a piece of cake. We should go and see what Shantoto and Prish are up to. As he and Cloud walked away, Luneth asked, Terra? When you used your Blizzaga, you've changed. What was it? That was an Esper. It seems that she is half human and half Esper. That's probably how she got her mystical powers. Her eyes grew wide as she gained insight. Oh, yes. In my homeworld, I remember meeting an Esper sealed in a statue telling me that was how my parents raised me. After the War of the Magi, no one was able to use magic besides the Espers, except me. That was why Kefka was so obsessed with me, because all he wanted was the Esper's power, and me as tools of destruction. As a slave, she usually remembered war and death. Since her revival, she wanted to ease her pain. But when he perished, they started to disappear, and I could still use them. Her face darkened when she thought about losing control of them. As if reading her mind, Firion rested his hand on her shoulder and assured, That's why we have you. You use your powers for good, to protect us and fight against adversity, thanks to you. And after we beat the Warlock, we can return home. Then everyone will welcome you with open arms. She then explained about her reasons why she eagerly wanted to return home. She's not sure if she has anyone that will be waiting for her. She doesn't want any more conflict. She wants to be home where it's usually peaceful and she doesn't have to fight anyone. Come on, guys, let's get a move on here. And so they trekked on to what new challenges laid ahead of them. Well, I guess that's it. I'll go with Chapter 3 later. And I pretty much explained about her roles in both Dissidia and Final Fantasy VI. I thought this would be the best time to test out Terra's skills against that dragon, cause, well, you can't actually beat it in the real game. In Shadowgate, it's like indestructible and it's an easy death. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I changed up all the rules here. So, see you guys in the next chapter. Later.